I never believed in ghosts, at least, I didn't until I spent a weekend alone in Blackwood cabin. Now, every time I close my eyes, I can't escape the cold chill that wrapped around me in that place, or the whispering voices that never stopped. It started innocently enough. I'd been working non-stop, drowning in deadlines and constant messages. The city was suffocating me, and I needed an escape. I searched for something quiet, something remote. That's when I found Blackwood cabin, a secluded spot deep in the woods, far from any prying eyes. The pictures looked peaceful, idyllic even. Snow-covered trees, a cozy cabin with a crackling fire, no neighbors for miles. The perfect getaway. I arrived on a Friday evening, the air crisp and biting. The sun was already low on the horizon, casting long shadows across the road that wound its way through the trees. The drive had been longer than expected, and the silence in the car made me uneasy. There were no streetlights for miles, and the road was barely wide enough for my car. The deeper I went into the woods, the darker it became, as if the trees were closing in around me. When I finally saw the cabin, I felt a strange sense of relief. It looked like something out of a postcard, rustic but charming, with smoke curling from the chimney. The front porch creaked as I stepped onto it, the wooden boards groaning under my weight. The door was old but sturdy, and the key was hidden exactly where the rental agency had told me it would be, beneath a loose brick by the side of the door. Inside, the cabin was everything I'd hoped for: a warm fire crackling in the stone hearth, rustic furniture made of worn wood, and old shelves filled with books. The windows were small, but the view was breathtaking, a thick blanket of snow covering the forest as far as the eye could see. But as I looked out the windows, a shiver ran down my spine. The woods beyond the cabin looked endless, the trees standing like sentinels in the dark. I shrugged off the feeling, settling in for the night. I didn't expect much excitement, just a chance to relax and unwind. But as I sat by the fire, I noticed something odd. The cabin, though cozy, felt off. A persistent draft, a strange chill that seemed to emanate from the walls themselves. The longer I stayed, the colder I felt. The warmth from the fire wasn't enough to push back the creeping sense of unease that was slowly tightening around me. That night, as I lay in bed, I heard a noise. At first, I thought it was the wind, howling through the trees, shaking the cabin's old frame. But then, it came again. A thump. Soft, but unmistakable. It was coming from the attic. My heart skipped a beat. I told myself it was nothing. Probably a mouse or some other animal, stuck somewhere in the walls. I forced myself to roll over and close my eyes, trying to ignore the unease clawing at my mind. But the thumping continued, louder this time. I shot out of bed, grabbing a flashlight from the dresser. The cabin seemed eerily silent, except for that persistent sound, now accompanied by a scraping noise. I hesitated at the attic door, my hand on the handle. The thought of going up there, to whatever unknown thing was making that noise, terrified me. But I couldn't ignore it, so I twisted the handle and pulled it open. The attic was empty. No signs of animals, no furniture, just a dusty, forgotten space filled with cobwebs. But the air felt different. Heavy, thick with something I couldn't describe. And then I saw it. A small, dark shape in the far corner of the room, half hidden by shadows. I moved closer, my flashlight beam trembling as it settled on the object. It was a small, antique rocking chair. Its wood was cracked and splintered, but the strangest thing was that the chair seemed alive. The way it tilted ever so slightly, as if someone or something was rocking it, though there was no breeze, no movement in the air. I couldn't move. I stood there, frozen, staring at that chair as the scrape of the rocking continued in the silence. Suddenly, the chair stopped. I spun around, heart hammering, but there was nothing there. No footsteps, no movement, just the dead silence of the attic. I backed out of the room, closing the door behind me. The rest of the night passed in restless tension. I heard the scraping again, faintly, but I couldn't bring myself to investigate. Instead, I locked the attic door and hid under the covers, praying for daylight. The morning didn't bring relief. If anything, the cabin felt even colder. I made breakfast, hoping to shake off the tension, but I couldn't stop looking over my shoulder. Every creak in the house, every shift of the floorboards, sent my heart racing. Around noon, I decided to explore the woods, desperate for a distraction. I grabbed my coat, bundled up, and stepped out into the snow. The trees were beautiful, towering over me like silent giants. The silence was almost deafening, broken only by the crunch of snow beneath my boots. But as I wandered deeper into the forest, the sense of being watched crept over me again. It wasn't until I stopped to catch my breath that I noticed it. Fresh tracks in the snow. They led away from the cabin and into the forest. The tracks weren't animal tracks, though. They were too large, too human. I followed them. The tracks led me deeper into the forest, and before I knew it, I had lost my bearings. The trees grew thicker, their branches twisting together like a maze. The sun was starting to set, and the woods were growing darker, the shadows stretching long across the snow. And then I saw it. A figure in the distance, standing still in the snow. At first, I thought it was someone else, another lost traveler, maybe. But as I drew closer, the figure didn't move. Its face was hidden in the shadows, its body still as stone. My breath caught in my throat. I turned to run, but the ground beneath me gave way. I slipped and fell into a deep, hidden pit, the world spinning as I tumbled. When I hit the bottom, the pain was immediate. My vision blurred, and for a moment, I was paralyzed by fear and confusion. But then, I heard it again, the scraping noise. Faint, but distinct. I looked up, and there it was. A faint shadow in the trees above, moving with slow, deliberate steps. I knew, without a doubt, that I was not alone. Somehow, I managed to crawl out of the pit and stagger back toward the cabin. But by the time I reached it, the sun had set, and the cabin felt even colder than before. I didn't stay another night. I packed my things and drove back to civilization as fast as I could, the sense of being watched never leaving me. When I returned the key to the rental agency, I asked about the cabin, my voice barely above a whisper. The woman behind the desk gave me a long, unreadable look before answering. "Blackwood cabin," she said. "It's been empty for years. The last tenants left. Suddenly. The owner had to sell it after that. Some say it's haunted." I didn't say anything. I just walked away, feeling the weight of something unseen following me. And I swore that I would never return to Blackwood cabin again.